and then we're going to keep everybody safe. Yeah, so I think we've covered all of that, apart from Ophir, the leopard seal. So in West Haven, and in fact, many of the marinas in Auckland, there is a leopard seal which lives here in Auckland, and it's really cool. Her name is Ophir. It's really great that she chooses to live in Auckland. She should be in Antarctic chasing penguins, but she chooses to live here in Auckland, and she just goes around all of the marinas. She eats the fish there, and then when there's no more fish, she'll go to another marina and eat the fish there. So if she's on the dock when we go down, well, we'll just leave her to herself, and we'll find another boat to go sailing on. We don't want to be poking her or asking her to move. Definitely take some photos though, but we'll do that from a distance if we see her. She's never done anything to anybody, but I don't want to chance it. She is quite a big animal. But like I say, it's pretty cool when we do see her. I do have some video. I see if I can't share some video of her playing with a fender. Maybe I'd have that ready for next lesson. The weather. So the weather obviously plays quite a big part in sailing. The wind is what powers us and moves us along, and we need to make sure the weather is correct for us going sailing. So there are a number of things that we can do to make sure we can manage higher winds and as well as lower winds, and we will talk about that as well. In New Zealand, we have a very powerful sun, and during the summer, we will get sunburnt if we're not careful. So sunscreen is a must during the summer. A water bottle is a good idea to take with us as well. On the MRX boats, there is a toilet as well. So yeah, if you need to use the bathroom, then there is a toilet there. And yeah, getting cold and wet. So when you're starting out sailing, you don't need all of the professional sailing gear. It's nice to have. It's certainly really good, high quality clothing. But really, when we're starting out, just a fairly decent wet weather jacket is all you need. Something like that you would take on a hike. That's all you really need to use, and an old pair of training shoes or running shoes. Something that you don't mind getting wet, but are soft and grippy. That would be good. What else we got? Strong winds. Yeah, we'll manage that. So at the bottom there's an indication of what the wind strengths might feel like. So 0 to 5 knots is quite hard to sail in. It's really difficult to find where the wind's coming from, and we can't see it or we can't feel it. See the wind. That's a bit of a strange concept, but I'll talk about how we can see what the wind's doing shortly. 5 to 15 knots. Well, that's everybody's kind of favorite wind strength, if you like. We've got enough wind so we can feel it on our face. The flags are flying, and there will be some speed to the boat as well. So it can be quite fun. 15 to 25 knots, well, it's getting more fun. There's more speed, more acceleration. The sails can get quite powerful. The boat might be leaning over. There might be a little bit of water coming over the side of the boat. That's all quite normal. Our wind limit is 25 knots, so we shouldn't really be out sailing in any more than that, because over 25 knots, it's really for sailors that know what they're doing. There is a definite risk of damage to the boat and significant injury if you disrespect the weather conditions once they get over 25 knots. If anyone wants to know what a knot is, well, there's a conversion down the bottom there. So 1 knot equals 1.852 kilometers per hour. I generally just multiply or divide by 2, depending on which way I'm going. We're generally guessing the wind strength by what we can see on the water, and a factor of 2 is close enough. Yeah, the swell and the thunderstorms, it's all good fun out there, but we can deal with it all. Picture of a cool boat. Knots. Now, I'm not quite sure how this is going to go. I have to switch devices now and show my my camera. In fact, I might just reposition the camera I'm on and try and tie the knot. So I've got my piece of rope here, which I borrowed from my flatmate's hammock, and we'll have a look at this first knot. So the first one is a figure of 8 stopper knot, and it's a pretty useful knot. It looks quite simple, and what we use that for, when we rig the boat up, we don't want the ropes to come off the pulleys that we're on. So if we thread the rope around a number of pulleys, we don't want that to become unthreaded when we're sailing, because it starts getting very difficult to thread that back up. So we'll put a stopper knot in the end, and that will stop the rope from coming through the pulleys. So let's, I don't know if can everyone see my camera? If I tilt that down, there we go. You can everyone see that I am dressed on the bottom as well as the top. So here we've got the rope here, and it's pretty straightforward. If we cross the rope over, we kind of make like a little alien shape. And the rhyme my American coach Rick came up with was that you make the alien, you strangle the alien, and then you poke him in the eye. So you got the alien, give him a little bit of a strangle, and then poke him in the eye, and then we pull that tight. So that knot, if my hand is a pulley, when I pull on the knot on the rope, the knot will stop the rope from going through the pulley. And if there's a bit of a tail, then I can pull on that tail to get the rope back. Okay, so that's the first knot. I'll do that again. So we've got the rope, I've just folded it over. I'm going to cross it over and strangle my alien a bit, and then straight through the eye and pull it tight. Now, on the screen, there should be a link to a YouTube video, and that will, this was a better video than probably what you've just witnessed on how to tie that knot. Let's move on to the next knot. So this is another knot, which is a stopper knot. It's got a double overhand stopper knot, and I quite like this knot. So basically, if we cross the rope over, just like we're doing up our shoes, and if we go round one more time, we can pull that tight. It takes a little bit to form it up, but that makes quite a chunky, square-looking knot. So if you've got a thin rope that goes through quite a large diameter pulley, this will be less likely to come through. Sometimes that figure of 8 knot, which is quite slim, can wiggle through, but this stopper knot, this double overhand stopper knot, is a far more squarer, so it won't go through a big pulley very well. So let's do that again. So we cross the rope over, and it's just like doing up your shoes, that first stage of doing up your shoes. But you go over, go round one more time, pull that tight, and there we go. There's the double overhand stopper knot. Now, if you want that to be bigger, you can just go around more times. So there I am in my starting position, which is like I said, just like doing up your shoes. If I go around once, I pull a bit more slack through, go around again, and then pull it tight. That makes a bigger knot. So the more times I go round, the bigger the knot will be. And it's quite easy to undo. If you see these ones going across, if you pull them apart, it gets some slack into the knot, and you can undo it quite easily. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. So the Bowline, this is the king of knots, I think. Annalise calls it, and I think I would agree with her. This is a really important knot. If you're going to learn how to sail, then you need to know how to tie this knot. you can use it for pretty much everything. You could use it as a stopper knot if you wanted to. You have a nice loop to pull on as a handle. But we use it to tie sails onto the boat, to the ropes that we use to control the sails. We'll use it to tie them on. We could use it for docking as well. So it's a pretty good rope. If you've got a man overboard situation, you could tie a rope that has tie a bowline with quite a big loop in it, and you could throw the person that's in the water that rope with the loop already tied in it, and they can put that around their shoulders, and you could pull them back on board. So it's a pretty useful knot. It's a lot easier if you tie it around something. So you got the leg of my tripod there. I'll try and tie it around that without pulling my camera over. So I'm going to have one fairly short length of rope and a longer piece. Now we want to make a loop in the longer one, and as it's pictured there, it wants to come underneath the bit as it goes around. Whoops. Then we take the tail. We call this a rabbit from now on. So the rabbit comes up out of the hole because the rabbit lives underground. It runs round the back of the tree, the long one, and then goes back down the hole the same way it came out. And when we pull that tight, kind of looks like a little life jacket. And this loop won't get bigger or smaller. It will stay the same size. I'll just do that again. So we thread it through something. The loop that we're making is here. This loop that I make in the long rope, I'm just folding that underneath and pinching it there. This forms part of the knot. So I take the tail up out of the hole, around the tree, and back down the hole. Now, there are two common mistakes. So if you're trying this at home and it's not working, the first thing that I would suggest you do is have a look at this loop. So this one crosses on top, and the bowline won't work if it crosses on top. That loop, the long one, has got to cross underneath when the loop is facing that shorter piece of the rope. So loop facing the short one, and it crosses underneath. The next mistake that people make is that they go down the hole rather than up out of the hole. So make sure you go do that. And then as you go round the tree, sometimes people come up out of the hole again, and that won't work. So the rabbit, if he's on the surface, he's got to go underground and down his hole into his house for safety. Now, they say there is that YouTube video there. I think probably that is significantly better, that video, than what I've just produced. So tomorrow, have a look at those videos and practice your knots. If you're having any particular struggles, flick me an email and I'll do my best to respond tomorrow. I might have a chat with you on the phone, or maybe we could have a one-on-one Zoom conversation and we can have a look at how we do those knots. Obviously, if 90 odd people do that, I'm going to struggle. But you know, have a go with those YouTube videos first, and we'll see how that goes. Yeah, well, let's move on. Another cool boat, less cool than the other one we saw. So how do we actually sail? So yeah, it's a new environment. If you're walking from your car to your workplace, it doesn't matter which way the wind's blowing. But it does matter which way the wind's blowing when you're on a boat. We need to have very good wind awareness, as we call it. So as you're walking on your daily walk tomorrow, maybe try and think about where the wind's coming from. Just feel it on your face, you know. Is the back of your ears cold? Is either one cheek cooler than the other one? and try and see if you can move your body so you're standing straight into the wind, because learning how to notice the wind and pay attention to it will actually help you a great deal when you actually get sailing, because it's everything when we're sailing. We need to know where the wind's coming from. We'll have a look at some boat vocabulary. So the big sail, the sail with the number 4 on it, this boat is called an Elliott 7. We run some really fun courses on that. It's a fun little boat. But that sail with the number 4 on it, that's called the main sail. That's the biggest one, and it's after the mast. The sail at the front, the generic term for that is head sail. So there are big ones and small ones. So a small head sail would probably be known as a jib, and a large head sail might be known as a genoa. Don't worry too much about that. If you say head sail, everybody will know that it's a sail at the front of the boat. Big pole in the middle of the boat is called the mast. We've already talked about that one. That's the boom at the bottom of the mainsail. That black pole is the boom. And then we've got the bow and the stern. Now, when I'm doing this live and not on video anyway, I normally point to the tiller, because when we put the arrow on, it just messed up the picture. But if you see the guy standing up with the green shorts, he's holding a black thing. That's called a tiller extension, and that goes down to like a white stick in the bottom of the boat, and that's called the tiller, and that's what we do the steering with. And we'll talk about how that works in a little while. Yeah, awesome. So now we're going to have a look at powering up the boat, stopping the boat, points of sail, and tacking and jibing. So tacking and jibing is turning the boats. And yeah, let's get into it. So here we've got 2 boats. The wind is coming from the top of the screen. And just take a moment to think about where the sail is going to be on those boats. Is that going to be on the left-hand side or the right-hand side of the boat? Well, the wind is actually going to blow the sail downwind. So the sails are always going to be on the opposite side of the boat to where the wind's coming from. Both the head sail and the mainsail. If we're going straight downwind, there are opportunities to have one sail one side, one sail the other. But for now, let's just think of it as if we're sailing, then the winds are going to be the wind's on the left, then the sails are going to be on the right hand side, and the wind is simply going to blow the sails to that side of the boat. And if we position them in the correct place, we're going to be going quite fast. In the next section, we'll get into that. So stopping the boat. We don't have brakes on the boat, but we can stop, and we can stop quite quickly. So if we point the boat into wind, then our sails will flap, and we call that the no-go zone. So anywhere in that red triangle, our sails are going to start flapping, and if they're flapping, they're not going to be generating any power for us, and the boat's going to slow down and stop. If we point the boat so the bow is straight into wind, then we will stop quite quickly because the wind will be starting to blow us backwards. Yeah. So that's how we stop. And let's have a look at how we make the boat go, because that's obviously more fun than stopping. Yeah. So if we sail across the wind, that's called a reach. And we can sail upwind. We can also sail downwind. Now, the important thing to note here is the different positions for those sails. So when we're reaching, we've got the sails about halfway out. When we go upwind, we need to pull the sails in a bit closer to us and have them as close as they can be to us on the boat. And when we're going downwind, we're going to let the sails as far out as they'll go. basically we want the sails out as far as they'll go all the time, as long as they're not flapping. So if the sails are flapping, then we need to pull on the ropes and get them a bit closer to us, and then they'll stop flapping. And when they stop flapping, that's approximately the right place for them to be. So if we were going downwind and we turn the boat so we were on a reach, our sails would start flapping if we didn't pull them in a bit closer. And if we were on a reach and we turn the boat upwind a little bit, then our sails again would start flapping if we didn't pull them in more. If we've got the sails all the way in and they're still flapping, well, we're in that red triangle and the boat's slowing down and stopping, and we need to turn the boat away from the wind so we're on the outside of that triangle. Difficulty is, of course, that nobody draws that triangle on the water for us, so we're doing that by feel. That's why I said tomorrow when you're out for your daily walk, have a think about where the wind's coming from, because when we actually start doing this for real, we're going to need to know where the wind's coming from. Set you a little bit of homework. Yeah, okay, let's move on. So if we turn closer to where the wind's coming from, we call that upwind. If we turn away from the wind, then we call that bearing away or downwind. So there's 4 types of turning a boat. There's heading up and bearing away, and the other 2 are tacking and jibing, which we'll get to shortly. Interestingly though, when we head up, the sail doesn't change sides on the boat, so we don't need to worry about the boom. All we're doing is pulling the sails in. And when we bear away, again, we don't need to worry about the sails or the boom hitting us on the head, because all we're going to do is ease the sails out. And sometimes if we're sailing along and it's quite windy and we can't bear away, that's probably because we haven't eased the sails, because the boat will want to go in the direction that the sails are set in. Okay, let's move on. Oh, I forgot to mention earlier that please do ask questions. If you don't understand something, that's not because you're stupid and you shouldn't learn to sail. Quite the opposite. Anyone can learn to sail. If you don't understand something, that's because I haven't explained it very well. So please do give me an opportunity to explain it again. I'm not very good at using the chat box. So if you put questions in there and I haven't responded yet, that's probably because I haven't seen the chat. If you would like to just turn your microphone on and butt in at any point. Obviously with 70 odd people tuned in, if we all did that, that would get quite noisy, but please do, in an orderly fashion, interrupt me and ask a question if you need to. Okay, moving on. So continuing with how we sail, when we want to tack, tacking is turning the boat through the wind. So we've got the wind coming from the top of the screen, and we can turn through that no-go zone, that red triangle there. As we turn into the wind, the sails on the boat will start to flap and the boat will lose power and slow down. If we continue to turn though, as we get to the other side of the no-go zone, our sails will fill and the boat will start accelerating again. So that's a little bit like driving a car, in that we're sailing along, we slow down, we go through the turn, and then we accelerate again after we've completed the turn. So the definition of tacking is that the wind, the bow goes through the wind. So at the moment in the middle of the tack, the bow is pointing straight into wind. And if we're turning the other way, that's not a tack. So we'll have a look at that next. So tacking is turning the front of the boat towards where the wind's coming from and continuing until the sails are on the other side of the boat. And as soon as the sails switch sides, we can straighten up the tiller and continue straight. And there's probably some better words from Annalise describing the process of tacking and the definition of that. Okay, so jibing then is when the wind's coming from behind us. So if we, sorry, someone's just sent me a message. Okay, it's somebody that wants to join this evening, but hasn't got the messages. Okay, so sorry about that. Somebody just sent me a message. They were trying to get into the webinar tonight, but hadn't received the messages or the emails that I sent out. But I can't do anything about that now. We're started. Anyway, let's get back to jibing. So we've got the wind behind us, and we're going to turn the boat. And this time it's the stern of the boat that goes through the wind. As we get halfway through the turn, one sail, the head sail, will flip through first, and pretty soon after that, the boom will come across, and that could come across quite fast. So as soon as the wind gets behind the sail will move across the boat, and that's the dangerous bit. That's the time when people can get hit on the head with the boom. So when we're in that first position, so here we are on the boat, we're sailing downwind, we want to say ready to jibe, and we want to make sure that everybody's ready for the jibe. You know, they're getting ready to duck. As we turn the boat, the sail will come across, and as the helmsperson, it's really their responsibility to make sure that nobody is in the way of this boom. Somebody might not be paying attention, they may not have understood the instructions. If they're standing up, well, we need to keep going straight, and we want to carry on going straight until they're out the way, and then we'll do the turn. We don't want to be turning when someone's standing up in the way of the boom. So then we end up on the other side. So we've got the sails on the right hand side of the boat here. They switch over halfway through the turn, and then they're on the other side. Now, if we try and stop the boom from coming over with our hand, we're going to have a sore hand. If we try and stop it with our head, same thing, we're going to have a sore head. There is no way we're going to be able to stop that boom from switching sides. It's extremely powerful, that main sail, and it will switch sides. We need to make sure we're well clear of it. And as I said before, we can do it quite safely, and we'll go through how we do that safely on the next few slides. But it can be controlled and done very safely, and if it's done safely, then it's no problem at all to jibe. Yeah, so jibing, turning away from the wind, having the wind in the back of the boat, and the sails change side. So if the sails are changing side, we're either tacking or we're jibing. If the wind is in front of us, then we're probably going to do a tack, and if the wind's behind us, then we'll probably be jibing. So let's have a look at the more complete picture then. We've got the no-go zone at the top, with the wind coming down the screen. And we can see that if we go straight upwind, our sails are going to flap and we're going to stop. We won't actually be able to progress forward like that. We can reach though, have the wind on the side of the boat. And we're going to have the sails about halfway out. with that. We can go upwind on the edge of that no-go zone. And if we do that, then, sorry, I'll just mute that microphone. Right, okay. Yeah, so we can reach, have the sails about halfway out. We can go upwind on the edge of that no-go zone with the sails in as far as they'll come. If they start flapping, well, we've turned the boat into the no-go zone a bit, and we just need to turn the boat out of the no-go zone to stop them from flapping. The sails are flapping like this, then it's a little bit more difficult to do that. We need to have some momentum, some forward motion for our rudder to work. As we move on, we can sail downwind as well. So on that practical day, when we will teach all of these points of sail. Points of sail is a complicated way of saying the directions that we can sail in relative to the wind. It's really important that we think of where the wind is all the time. If we're sailing upwind and we turn the boat downwind or away from where the wind is coming from and have the sails about halfway out, we're bearing away. We can continue to bear away, so we're sailing downwind. All we've got to do is ease the sails out. We're not tacking or jibing. If we're sailing downwind and we turn the boat so we're onto a reach, well, we're turning up, we're heading up. Up and down is used as directions, basically. So if someone says up, they mean closer to where the wind's coming from. If they say down, they mean away from the wind. So turning the boat up into the wind, we're heading up. We can just say up or down. At the top there, we've got tacking. So here on this boat, we're sailing upwind. We continue to head up closer to where the wind's coming from. We don't stop here, we carry on, and then we'll be heading upwind on the other tack, we call that. Tack is used a lot in sailing. So it can mean the side of the boat that the wind is coming from, or the actual action of turning the boat with the wind coming onto the front of the boat, the bow. So once we've completed the tack, if we keep turning, we'll be bearing away and we'll be easing the sails out onto the reach. Ease the sails out a bit more to sailing downwind. And if we keep turning that way, we'll end up jibing and we'll have the sails on the other side. So that's the complete picture. If I can teach you this in one day of sailing out on the harbour, then that's really cool, because that means you'll be able to get on a boat, sail away from the harbour and be able to come back again, which would be nice. Presumably you want to come back. I mean, maybe you're heading out on a big adventure, but being able to turn around and sail in all of these directions is pretty useful. And we will teach all of those on that practical day. There is obviously a bit more to learn. And if you want to know where the rocks are and how to avoid hitting other boats, and we'll cover that in more detail on our level 2 course. Right, so this is where we get to the more practical side of the course, and we'll go over what the on-water exercise would be if we weren't restricted at the moment with this horrible virus. But hopefully those restrictions will be released from them and we'll be able to get out sailing soon. So if we're on a reach, it's quite useful to spot something on the shore that we can aim at. So here we got the boat sailing towards that tree, and they are just moving the tiller from side to side, observing which way the bow goes, and then just trying to keep the bow pointing at that tree. Now, obviously, we're in for a bumpy ride if we go all the way to that tree. So we're going to do a tack. And a tack is always turning towards the wind. So we're not turning left or right, we're turning up towards the wind. And we're going to say ready to tack. When everyone's ready, you know, they're nodding or they're starting to do the work that they need to do to get the sails across. As soon as everybody's ready, then we're going to move the tiller and we're going to turn towards where the wind's coming from. So the wind is coming from the top of the screen. The boat is going to turn towards the top of the screen. That's up. And we're going to keep going until the wind is on the other side of the boat and the sails are switched over. That will happen quite slowly. The boom coming across the boat will happen quite slowly. It's a very nice, easy, controlled way of turning the boat, very safe. And that's why we do that one first. So after that, we're going to sail towards the sky tower this time. Before we get all the way to the sky tower, same thing again. We're going to say ready to tack, and then we're going to move the tiller and turn the boat towards the top of the screen because the wind is coming from the top of the screen. So on this boat, boat 1, we're going to turn left, and on this boat, boat 3, we're turning right. So left and right don't really have a lot of use on a boat. What's important is where the wind's coming from and whether we're turning up into the wind or up into the wind. If we're doing that, then we're tacking. Both of these are a tack. So sailing along, turn towards where the wind's coming from, the boom will come across nice and slowly. As the sails fill, we'll start accelerating again. So what we'd normally do is we'll do this figure of 8 exercise twice, rotating the crew around and making sure everybody can tack. They don't have to be Olympic grade tacks, but as long as everyone can do that tack fairly smoothly and move yourself across the boat. So here on boat 1, we would be sitting on the opposite side of the boat. And as we tack, we cross the boat. So we're sitting on the opposite side of the boat to the sails. And our weight on that side helps balance the boat. Okay, any questions at that point? Right, let's have a look at jibes. So if you've got any questions, just flick your microphone on and ask away. I'm not going to be worried if you interrupt me at all, and questions are very welcome. So jibing, it's the opposite of tacking. So here we go, boat 1, it's reaching, it's going across the wind is coming onto the side of the boat. And we're going to say ready to jibe. So we're going to say ready to jibe because we want everybody to know that this is not a tack. It's going to be a bit more serious than a tack. We need to be careful, we need to duck because that boom is going to come across the boat a little bit faster than when we tack. So ready to jibe, and then the next stage is to pull that main sheet. So if we pull the sail in, the boat will slow down, and you know we may not want that, but this will aid us when we jibe. So if we're on this other boat on the right hand side, if we just jibe now, as soon as the wind gets behind the sail, it will start moving across. And it'll be going really fast by the time it hits us on the head. And hitting us on the head's not going to slow it down at all. It will just keep going until the rope's tight. And at that point, it might break something on the boom. Pulling the boom in close to us will slow it down. And the reason for that is that when the wind gets behind the sail, it doesn't have so far to go. So it doesn't have the time to accelerate. So as it passes over our head, it will be going a lot slower. So we say ready to jibe. Our main sheet trimmer, that's the person controlling where that main sail is. They get busy, they'll pull on the rope until that's into the back corner of the boat. And at that point, the person on the helm can do the jibe. And that's how we keep jibing really safe. If the boom's not in very quick, well, we'll just keep going in a straight line and wait for that boom to be in before we turn downwind. So here we've got the wind coming from the top of the screen. We're sailing along, we turn away from the wind, so we go down, we keep turning, and the sail will go on the other side of the boat. Sail off towards that tree, and before we get there, we'll do the same thing. Pull that mainsail in, and then we'll bear away and go back up to boat one. Now, yeah. And I think at this, that actually concludes lesson 1. So let's stop sharing this screen. And yeah, hopefully you can see me now. Yeah, well, thank you very much for attending this evening. It's, yeah, definitely a new way of teaching for me. As you saw from the beginning, I had a few technical issues to start with. I did the best I could. Not quite sure what happened, but a friend of mine did tell me that I needed to be careful for people trying to hack these sessions. Apparently at the universities, it's quite common for the students to hack the Zoom session and then do something weird in the background. So I'm pleased nothing like that happened. But yeah, my apologies for the slow start. But yeah, really interested in having some comments. So if you've got some questions, if I see some, oh, I have had some chat comes through. So let's just go through the chat and yeah, so lots around that. Yeah, so it looks like all the chat was just really about the microphones at the beginning. I've got one question. So 5 to 15 knots is the sweet spot. I think that's certainly a good wind range for everyone to start sailing in. You know, there's enough wind for it to be fun, but not enough wind to really be all that scary for new people. Yeah. Oh, and then lots of people saying thanks. So yeah, thank you very much for attending. Yeah, like I said, new way of teaching for me. I'm learning. I appreciate your feedback. If you want to send me some feedback or some tips as to how I can use the technology a bit better and help you learn sailing. It is a really a great sport and lifestyle, and yeah, I'm really pleased to be able to bring you this course free of charge while we're in lockdown and while we can't go sailing. And if anyone does want to get out on the boat, once we get to level 2, I'd be very glad to make that happen. Yeah, so I think with that, let's finish for this this evening. Oh, I've got another few questions coming in here. So yeah, so someone said that was very clear and easy to understand. Thank you for that. I was worried how it would come across in a Zoom call. Yeah, I'd very much like to get out sailing, Graham. That would be awesome. I think I did see a question about when we would tack or jibe. So that's a really good question. Really, if the wind's ahead of us, and then, you know, if we're sailing upwind, then we will be tacking. If we're sailing downwind, we're probably going to be jibing. But as we sail downwind, we don't have to jibe. We can do a tack. So if we turn upwind and keep turning upwind until the sail passes over, you know, over on the other side of the boat, and then basically do a bear away at the same time, we can end up sailing downwind without jibing. that may well be better to be explained on the boat. So if it's really windy, I would be cautious about jibing. So at the point in time when the sails are very powerful and there's a lot of power in that sail and we're maybe moving fast, maybe it might be difficult to jibe in a safe way. At that point, and I think it's probably good for everybody, if you're a bit worried about how the jibe's going to go, that's probably a good time to do what we call a granny tack, which is for people that are too scared to jibe. And there's no shame in that. In fact, it's a sensible thing to do. It's what's called good seamanship. So if you do the granny tack, so it's a really big turn all the way around, you can have the same effect as jibing, still be sailing downwind, but the boom comes across slowly because you're tacking. I might see if I can come up with a graphic for that for Thursday. That was a really good question. Thank you for that. When will the recording be available to see? I will look to edit this first thing in the morning and upload it to our YouTube channel later that day. It might take me a little while to edit it, but I'll get it up on the YouTube channel as soon as I can. Yeah, I think this is based on the position you're in when you're going back to tacking or jibing. Let's say you can, if you're reaching, if you think back to that slide, you could turn either way. So if you turn towards the wind, you're tacking. If you turn away from the wind, you're jibing. So you do actually have a choice. But if you want to go a particular direction, a jibe may well be a quicker turn to do, and a tack might take a bit longer, which is why people wouldn't necessarily do that if they're racing. But those guys that never do a granny tack, they always jibe. Well, they may well have some stories in the bar about how, they would have done really well if, they hadn't hit their mate with the boom when they jibed. And, if they'd tacked, well, yeah, the boat would have been a bit slow around the course, but they would have finished. And to win a race, first you have to finish. So another question, when's the next session? So that's on Thursday. So I will look to send the links out for that tomorrow. I'll include the links to the YouTube channel where the not videos are. I'll do that in the email I send you guys tomorrow. Yeah, awesome. Lots of people thinking. All right. Well, I guess given the number of thanks I've got, that couldn't have been too bad. I was quite fearful of the new technology and how it would work. But maybe we can teach people how to sail while we're in lockdown. So yeah, thanks very much for attending. I'll see you all same time, 7 o'clock on Thursday, and I'll try and get all this admin done before then. So you've got the links to the videos that are on the YouTube channel, and you've also got the link to the next Zoom session. So yeah, any feedback you want to give, please do send me some emails. If I get swamped with the emails, please don't get grumpy if I don't reply, but I will reply to all the emails that I can. And I'm actually really excited about this big group that we've got. So like I say, 94 people, I think, in total had signed up for this. So it's really amazing that while we're sitting at home and I've got this time, that we can actually start learning how to sail as well. So thank you very much for everybody attending. I'll look forward to seeing you on Thursday evening. Have a great Wednesday. All right. Thanks, everyone. I just need to work out how to end the call now. Yeah. All right. I think I found the button. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.